Yes, there it is. Fantastic.
How's it going, Sam?
It's going well, Mark. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Yeah, so I just contacted you just to talk a little bit about you and humanity, and just get away from the gear stuff a little bit, and just have a normal
chat. Yeah, I feel like we need coffee or something. Actually, I do have coffee. Do you have coffee?
I know. Well, no, but I was thinking about it, so it's the thought that counts, right? So
I might actually have to take a pause in like 10 minutes and go refill my cup.
Oh yeah. What kept? I saw on one post a few days ago, somebody was asking you what type of coffee you drink. What type of coffee is that?
This is the current coffee I'm drinking is by Death Wish Coffee. It's a company, I don't even know where they're based. I heard about them because I guess they're really small. Like they basically just run out of a food truck type situation. Like it's not a huge company. Yeah. And they won something to have like a 30-second ad spot on the Super Bowl. And they had an awesome commercial made for that. It was all included, I guess Target gave it away or something like that. And that's why I heard about them. I was like, oh, I'm going to order some of their coffee and support them. And it's actually really good. It's super caffeinated and it's Death Wish coffee. And then I have this really awesome, like one touch. It grinds the beans. It tamps it and everything. And it makes everything. Yeah, it's all fully automatic. And then it also, you plug in a container that has milk, and then it like heats the milk and gives you a nice foam. So it's like a perfect little.
Oh wow! So it steams it for you and everything.
Yeah.
Gives you a nice little foam.
Nice little latte. So.
Fantastic.
But I haven't been drinking coffee very long, so I'm still like figuring out what I like. But it's currently Death Wish. Yeah, and they're big. Yeah. It's funny because on the bag, their logo is just this giant, like it almost looks like a poison logo. So, it probably was worth the question in the photo. Like, what is that?
Right. Yeah. Well, if you're interested in stepping out a little bit, down here in Durham, we have Counterculture. You may have seen that at some stores. But yeah, try that.
Yeah, I think I've heard it. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, very good stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm a relatively new coffee drinker. I didn't succeed, but I tried to give up drinking soda. I definitely don't drink it as much as I used to, but to offset that, I started drinking coffee. Not as much sugar, but the same amount of caffeine. And now I just do both. So
sure.
Made life worse. It's like a person that tries to quit smoking with like a nicotine patch, and then they do both, and then it's like they're getting double the hit of nicotine, and it's that much worse. That's what happened to me and coffee.
Yeah, I think like the sugar though was like the big thing.
I've had to cut back. I try and limit myself to only having a soda. That's like my wedding reception reward for having made it, 6 hours on my feet. And I'll usually get a, Oh, sorry. I just got a notification on my iPad here. Yeah. Anyway, that's my reward for making it through. I have a soda I don't ever drink at weddings, like alcohol or anything. So
yeah. Right on. Well, is there any other thing that since you've, I don't know, just since you've been, your business has taken off a lot more, and you've had to hustle more, I guess. Like, is there any other like health things that you've had to change or?
Well, I just turned 30 this year, and the only thing that I would ever do concerning my health was like exercise regularly for a long time. But I go in like 6 months bursts of like being really good and diligent and I would mostly jog, go on a couple mile run like every day or every couple days. But then I would like hibernate for 6 months. And so, so I wasn't even that consistent with my exercise, though I do feel really good when I'm finally like consistent and running, but I do that kind of on and off. But now that I've turned 30, I have, actually like gone to the doctors recently, got my eyes checked again, and like trying to just get a full, it was actually really great this week. Actually on Wednesday, I went to see a physical therapist, and she is the wife of a photographer that attended one of my workshops. He was like, hey, I had a great time at your workshop. We're based in DC. I'd love for you to just come talk to my wife and see, about kind of the unique physical demands of being a wedding photographer and like just see if she can help you at all.
Right.
Because, I'm pretty healthy, but of course at the end and even in the middle of every wedding, I feel it in my feet and in my back. And I've tried to have the equipment that I think is best, like for my comfort and distributing the weight well and all that. But and buying the right shoes, like I feel like I'm doing everything right. But I sat down with her and talked for 2 hours, and she like taught me just some simple using these little like dense foam balls and foam rollers. You just like lay out on the floor and you work parts of your back and your body. And I just felt incredible after that. So it's like this 2 hour thing. So I'm trying to do more stuff, just be a little more proactive in my health now that I'm 30. But it's that's, one of the things long term, I think a lot of photographers, the reason they burn out or they get tired of shooting weddings is that they literally just don't stay healthy enough to do it. It's very demanding, and it's unique in that it's like 5 days out of the week you can kind of be really sedentary and sit at your desk and just be lazy. But then 1 or 2 days in the weekend there, you have to be on your feet for like 8 to 12 hours, like just working, and that's really hard.
Sure.
So, and I can't imagine trying to do this when I'm 40 if I haven't kept up with some sort of routine and staying healthy. But I don't know. Yeah.
So I'm in a similar boat. I mean, I'm always trying to be healthy, but I'm thinking about like 10 years, 20 years down the road. What do I want to still feel like doing rather than what do I just want to do with my career?
Absolutely.
I found myself doing more meditation, laying on the ground more, stuff like that, and just chilling rather than feeling like I have to go more. It's funny. Difference.
It's funny. Yeah, it totally does. I don't meditate or anything, but my girlfriend Nessa does, and she has to do it almost every day, and she's so much better off having basically a tool like that to kind of focus and everything. But I don't know. My 30, I think in one of the questions you sent me, it was kind of the like somewhere on the internet I had mentioned like after 10 years I see myself phasing out photography, and not necessarily do I think that's like for sure going to happen, but I'm thinking and formulating and planting seeds now as if it could happen. And like I said, by the time you're 40, 45, it's I don't know if I would be able to shoot 40 weddings a year just because of the amount of physical exhaustion and all that. So not that I'm definitely like planning to stop shooting after 10 years. I'm just prepared for it if I have to. Sure. Whether or not my health, it could also just be stylistically, I'm no longer like marketable.
Sure. Yeah. I think I heard you and Ryan Bernheiser and then Nathan as well talking in one of your podcasts about that, about sustainability. What does it look like? Because most photographers don't last that long at the rate that you guys do it, at least. So
it's weird. So my first year shooting, I think I did like 5 or 6 weddings. Second year I did like 15 or 20, and then basically ever since my third year until now, it's been 45 to 50. If not 50 every time. I just kind of lose count after once I get into the 40s. I'm like, it's a lot. And it's crazy to think that a lot of photographers, like my girlfriend Nessa, she limits herself to like 25 a year. And so I'm basically shooting two years worth of work in 1 year. And once I've been doing that for now like 6 years, that's a lot. That's almost 12 years worth of work for a lot of photographers. So.
Yeah. What was, you said the first year you shot like 4 or 5 weddings?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What year was that?
That would have been, I guess, 2010, 2009. I think it was January 2010 was my first wedding.
Okay.
We'll check that actually.
Yeah. Would you also say that you've been a professional photographer that long?
Yeah. Well, no, I was shooting. I got my start shooting professionally, but news and press conference type stuff in DC. And I did that since 2008. Started in January 2008 doing that. And then one of my coworkers at the place that I did that was getting married, and she asked me to shoot her wedding. And that's how I started weddings. But so I was shooting for money and to make a living for myself since 2008. but
Sure.
yeah, very different type of work.
Yeah. On, I guess on that same note, I think I had a question. I feel like that was connected to that. So I think one of my questions, I said, talk about your beginnings as an artist and some of the events in your life that led to where you are now.
Uh-huh.
Can you talk about a few specific ones, one or two?
Yeah. Well, just to set the scene a little, I grew up in a place called Lynchburg, Virginia, a city of about 70,000 people. My interests, well, we moved there when I was like 7 years old. Before that, my mom was in the military, so we moved around like every year, kind of like a typical military situation. And yeah, we planted in Lynchburg and kind of were there ever since. And I really was into photography around high school. Before that, like the only artistic thing I was ever into was music. I mean, I played violin since I was in the second grade and learned guitar and drums and bass and all that stuff, and really love sound engineering and record production and all that. Even now, I just have like tons. This is actually probably my crappiest mic, the one I'm talking to you on, but it's like the easiest. This is my best mic. No, that's not my best, but it's one of my best. It's this giant
like a little robot
mic. Yeah. And I've actually got another one of these that's like a vintage model. That's not from the company Blue. It's from another company called Flea. But anyway, I love microphones. What's cool about this is that the head is swappable. So the capsule actually comes off and you can like change the tonal qualities of the mic. And anyway, so I was really into this stuff, mostly because I was always into computers, and I ended up majoring in, studying computer science and information science and network administration and all that stuff. I worked for the IT department at my college. And the only thing that really appealed to me about photography was the technical aspects of it, the sensors, the trade-off in ISO, and how some cameras were better than others. And all that was really awesome, but I didn't really consider it a career option until I was looking literally on Craigslist for all my job possibilities up in the DC area. And I applied, sent my resume out everywhere, had a bit on my resume about photography and my interest in music and photography. And saw an ad for this place called the National Press Club, which is where I ended up getting an offer to work, and it was their staff photographer. That's where I did all the news and press conference stuff. So that's how I kind of fell into shooting. I mean, it was kind of just luck. I did have to make the call. I remember distinctly, I was calling all my friends, all my relatives and stuff to get advice about, okay, should I take this job, computer science job working for NASA out in Greenbelt, Maryland. It's a NASA contractor. It wasn't like I was working directly, but close enough. Sure. And so, they paid twice as much, or do I call the other place and work for them in DC and take photos? And it was tough. So like literally half my friends and family were saying, no, definitely take the one that starts at 80 grand and and has a cushy retirement, and you could probably work there forever. And then half of them were saying, no, you should definitely go do photography and live in downtown DC and like be, 2 blocks from the White House. Like that sounds awesome. It's good. So anyway, that was stressful, but I'm glad I chose the one that I did. I never thought I'd be doing weddings ultimately, but anyway, that's where it all kind of spiraled from.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I really had no clue. So, I mean, did ever have any regrets from that decision? Feel like
not at all.
The right one?
Yeah, definitely. But what's really scary is that, I mean, it was a total toss up. I was so close to just taking the other job, and how different my life would be for sure. Totally. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but
totally. Wow.
Yeah. It's weird to think about. It's funny that I can identify that specific decision. It's just changing and putting my life on such a specific track. And I always wonder about other things in my life where if I decided another way, things would be totally different, but I just didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
And anyway, yeah. So I've just been very fortunate. A lot of it's just been luck as well.
So, I mean, do you fully, how much of it would you say is luck? I don't know.
Well, I say luck in a sense that like I do work all the time. Somebody actually asked a question in the chat, like how am I able to balance everything, and or how am I able to do like teaching and workshops and speak all this. And I've kind of always been a workaholic, although academically I was not at all. I was horrible at anything that I had to do because it was like, because I was told to, as a test or a project or a paper or whatever. Like I was a horrible student, but that's because I spent all of my time recording bands and researching like recording equipment. And that was basically my entire college career was doing, living on campus, but studying something that had nothing to do with my major. And so, and that's all I did, like day and night. I was eating and breathing music and recording. And now that's just transitioned to eating and breathing photography. That's literally all I do. And I'm fortunate that I live with Nessa, who's also a photographer. And though she doesn't like to talk about the same aspects of it, like she's not really that into the technical stuff. She's more into the light and the feeling of an image than I am. That actually is a great balance because it's always interesting and we're not like in agreement on everything. So discussions don't get boring.
Sure.
So it's nice that I have that support and the ability to just be working all the time. And, I like it. So.
Sure. I guess going back to your beginnings as a photographer, starting off, there's just so many new photographers now, and the stats of people trying to start off and then just quitting are insane. What do you think the biggest challenge was for you when you first started out, say that first year back in 2009 when you first did those 5-6 weddings?
Just confidence. I mean, I was always sort of doing whatever I wanted when it came to the portrait stuff on the wedding day. But, that's probably a pretty standard feeling to not be confident in like delivering the full gallery. Like I'd only ever been to one wedding in my life when I was like 11 years old. So when I did my very first wedding and that whole first year, I just hadn't seen a lot of weddings. I never second shot for another photographer. So I just literally didn't know if what I was doing was what I should be. Like,
yeah.
Is this the time of day you take family pictures? Like, is it like what, and the biggest stress for me was the family pictures. Like, okay, are there certain groups that people should always get at every wedding? Or do you just kind of improvise every wedding and all that? And I would just be really stressed. Like, I hope I got everything everybody's going to want. Like, I didn't get a picture of the bride with just her mom. Is that, are they going to hate me for not getting that and stuff? And, eventually I figured out that, people getting married, it's generally their very first time and they have no idea what's right or wrong either. They're learning it on the fly as they go from other vendors or just from the internet. So it really doesn't matter. Every wedding can be totally unique to that couple. And once I kind of learned that and I just got used to it, it became much easier to be confident and just kind of ran with it. But, I was super fortunate, man. After that first year, inquiries just have always come through the door, like it's growing steadily. So way more than I need, right? I turn away a lot of work and that's a good position to be in, but just trying to keep that up, I guess, as long as I can, just by doing good work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you have any embarrassing stories that you'd be willing to share from like when you first started out?
Honestly, I don't think that I do. It's probably because I blocked it out. I mean, I had embarrassing things. I've witnessed embarrassing things happen at weddings, but nothing to me in a sense where like, I was walking backwards down the aisle and fell or anything like that. Like I've been, thankfully just had, I guess, a good experience thus far. But I will say one of the scariest things that happened was I showed up to shoot a wedding on the wrong day. I showed up on Friday and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing here? The wedding is Saturday." And I was booked for that Saturday.
Yeah.
With another wedding. And that was a bit of a crazy freak out, but it ended up not being my fault. They had inquired originally on the date that I ended up showing up and never told me that the date had changed and they never, saw, I guess they didn't read the contract or they just assumed the date was right and it wasn't. And so it wasn't on me, but I was able, thankfully, to find a replacement photographer and they were totally happy and everything was fine. But oh my gosh, did that really teach me a lesson and just like not trusting clients to have all their ducks in a row. Like, go out of your way to make sure that they know what they're signing.
Sure.
Because a lot of times they don't. They just assume you've done everything for them,
Right.
the addresses and start times and all that. Like, no, you need to be proactive about making sure it's all correct. So.
Sure. I mean, how long did it take you to learn all that, really?
Not that long. Again, I was really fortunate. I've been using ShootQ. It's similar to all these other Tave and 17 Hats as studio management. I've been using it since my very first wedding.
Okay.
And so it is. I don't at all use it even close to its full capabilities, but it's enough to where everything stays organized for me, and it's got a little questionnaire that automatically gets sent to clients. And one of the questions that's now on there is, is this the date of your wedding? I'd never used to have that question. It was just in the contract, and I assumed that was enough. But so I've tweaked things here and there, but it's done a really great job of keeping my business running for me. It easily saves me hiring an employee to do all that, because it's not my strong suit.
Yeah, somebody was asking if you, over here in the Q&A, do you outsource any tasks or aspects of a project to prevent yourself from being overwhelmed?
Yeah, no, I do virtually everything. I've tried outsourcing a lot of stuff. I tried outsourcing social media. That ended up being a total disaster. I've tried outsourcing email. That ended up being a total disaster. I have had great success outsourcing my albums, and all I do is I have Nessa. She lives with me, so it's sort of outsourcing, but sort of not. But she does the first draft design. So I love albums, but I just procrastinate like crazy if I have to design them, which is why, same with blogging. It's a lot of the same work to put together a slideshow or a blog post that goes into putting together an album. And I just hate that stuff. The putting the story together and all that. Like, I love it when it's done, but oh my gosh, it's like pulling teeth to get me to sit down and do it. So that was becoming a problem. I mean, albums were being, later and later delayed, and it was always this crushing weight. And so Nessa, takes the first step, and then, I verify and interact with the client still on every level, but she's the one actually doing the first draft. So
yeah, that makes sense.
That's been huge. And then I've looked into doing more recently outsourcing some of my editing and everything. But that's not something I've really gone full in on. I still edit everything myself right now. And I always have up until now. Every single image gets edited by me. So I don't know if that'll ever work. I'm so particular. I mean, most photographers are, but my look specifically, the way that I shoot a lot of times is with the thought of like, okay, how is this going to edit later on in mind? And if somebody isn't perfectly in sync with that, I don't know how they're going to edit my work. A lot of like pushing the dynamic range of the sensor by exposing just for the highlights and then pulling back the shadows. And if somebody just isn't used to that in their editing style, I mean, they're going to think either I'm a really crappy photographer that just totally can't expose anything right, or they're just, I have to explain it to them, and it's a process. But
sure.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, but those are the only two things. And I definitely still get overwhelmed at busy times of the year. And, I just kind of put my head down and think about how it's not always like this all the time. So, and it's my fault. I can always say no to things, and I don't. But,
it's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let me actually ask one of my other questions.
Sure.
Let's see. So, I know that I've heard you say Jeff Newsom and Ryan Brunauser are some of your big inspirations. Are there any other artists specifically that are not photographers that inspire you? And
like painters and such. I mean, in general,
like for me, like Macklemore is a huge inspiration for me.
Cool.
Like he's really big. And there's other artists like that, but other painters, musicians.
Yeah, like any art. Yeah, most of them would be in the audio world, like producers. Bryan McTernan is a big one. He's done a lot of bands that I've loved. Casey Bates, he's a producer out of Seattle, who's just done incredible work, and like, I don't know, he's been doing it probably 15 years now, and I listened all the way. I've listened to his stuff from when he was doing it out of his basement and all this, and it's just amazing to see how it's evolved. And Yeah, pretty much anybody I consistently look. Matt Goldman, he's another record producer, and like I really admire their not just their ability to like mix a song and do just stellar work, but like just push the envelope in audio
Sure.
and like just try stuff, because recording takes so long, so long. I mean, even with really talented musicians, like it's a long process. And when you can do that and still like totally encourage bands to, let's try it a different way. Let's go to some place and pick up a bunch of random crap and just record through it and see how it sounds. Put the microphone in the back bowl under the back corner of the room. And when you still have all this emphasis and time on experimenting, much less just getting the take right.
Right.
I really admire that. It's awesome. But so I would say probably my biggest influences are in that world, not necessarily photography. I mean, there are certain big directors that I love, but there's nobody interesting or obscure. It's like your standard Wes Anderson and directors like Chris Nolan and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right.
But yeah, being in DC, it was when I lived there, because I lived in downtown DC for like 6 years, and it was a really great place to just, if I had an extra hour or two to kill, I walk into a museum. And I went to the National Portrait Gallery almost on a daily basis. So it was right near where I would always grab lunch, and just I wouldn't really pay attention to who the artist was as much as just like taking it all in and noticing the different use of light and all that. And they just have like insanely awesome, I just had really good access.
Sure.
and most of the museums are free in DC, so it was just unlimited. So I took that in a lot, but I haven't been to a museum in a while now that I moved. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Sure. Is there any more questions you saw over there you want to answer really quick? I don't know.
How do you read light? That's a tough one to just talk about. The biggest thing that helped me read light was start using live view more on my camera. You just see everything in real time. So in my mind, it just clicked a lot faster. It's kind of weird how, I don't know if you've ever gone through this. You'll shoot like a whole session, or you'll shoot an idea and you're just like, oh, this is awesome. And you're so excited. And then when you pull it up on your computer screen, you instantly know what you want to change. It's like, man, why didn't I change that when I saw it in the viewfinder? And it's like, well, it's only like 10% of what the actual size is going to be. So anyway, switching to live view, you have now you have like 4 inches to actually look at, and you see your actual exposure and bokeh and all that. That's really great, but you just have a larger viewing surface. And for me, I instantly see what I want to change and can do that versus having to wait to see it on a big giant computer monitor. And so reading light, I need a bunch of slides, and I need some more time to talk about it. But again, try using live view if you never have, and see if that, it increases your efficiency and speeds up that whole process.
Sure. Yeah, I think I listened to you talk about that one time, and I started practicing it, and then ended up shooting less shots, but most of I would get better shots because like you said, I was able to see on the back what I wanted it to look like. I actually I teach teenagers photography down here in Durham, and I was actually teaching them Thursday night. In downtown Durham, live view and how to use it in that sense. And I was like, this is so interesting. It's actually just such an easy thing that we all have that a lot of artists don't they don't like it. And honestly, like I have the Sony A7 II or R or something like that, and then I also have the Fuji X100. And then when I first got those, I was like, what the hell, I can't my viewfinder, I need my viewfinder, and it didn't work, and I actually didn't shoot with those for a long time because of that, because I just was like, I don't know what to do. How do I shoot with this?
It's an awkward transition, and not quite the same way as this, but very similar to how digital started taking over film, right? And it was just like, wow, that was a really awkward transition for people. Just because once you get used to doing something a certain way, it's tough to consider ever changing that. And live view is still evolving. It's not as good as it will be in another 5 to 10 years. And so maybe it's not quite there for most people yet, but it's there enough for me. I definitely give up some stuff in terms of reaction time and speed and all that. But again, like you said, what you get back is a higher keep rate or more quickly, a quicker way to formulate an idea for a picture.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I don't know. It's always, but better to get in early and get used to it now, because I guarantee DSLRs and optical viewfinders won't be the mainstream forever.
Sure.
Everything will go the way of like the Sony mirrorless stuff and just EVFs and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Although I do think when you're first starting out, there might be some value in shooting with the limitation of like optical viewfinder and not seeing an instant response, because I think it does help you like figure out the shot in your head first, and then and I think that's a healthy thing to do in the early stages as a photographer.
But. Sure. Yeah, I can see that problem happening too, because I think it takes struggling to really conceptually get a holistic grasp of this thing called light. And I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've got one more like nice deep question. So what I was wondering specifically is a couple of photographers that people probably know, Ron Muirhead and Jeremy Cowart.
I hung out with Ryan 3 weeks ago for a full week. Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, and I know you know this, but those guys both, I mean, they wear their heart on their sleeve. They just are constantly talking about struggles, emotional pain even, and all these other really these things that drive their art. Do you have anything like that you'd be willing to discuss?
Yeah, I would say certainly nothing new for artists to channel their especially negative sides of their life into their work, right? And I've had plenty of emotional ups and downs in my life, and just issues. But all of that was and still is channeled through music for me, just songwriting, playing instrument stuff. Not at all do I use my photography for that kind of thing. And not to mention mostly what I shoot are weddings, which generally, even though I will occasionally photograph somebody in maybe a stoic, thoughtful, quiet way, it's never like sad. Generally people aren't sad on their wedding day. And even if I'm doing something where it looks like maybe somebody can interpret it as sad, again, I'm trying to portray more just thoughtful or quiet, and not like this person is sad clearly or depressed. And anyway, so yeah, I mean, no, my life is pretty good. I don't have any, huge struggles that I currently deal with, or at least not in the last 10 years, that I feel I have to, work through in my photography or in my work with any of my images. Yeah, it's all well and good. So that is a really good question. And you notice both those guys, neither of those guys really shoot weddings ever.
Yeah,
they have complete control of their art from A to Z all the time. And so I can see why, if you can make a living doing that, how that can happen. But for me, not so much. If ever I'm going through something or need to like get that artist in me out, it's through music. And that's why, even though I've kind of come around on this a little bit, I hate when people say like, you're such an artist, or your work is very artistic. I don't feel like I'm really doing art. Not that I'm not emotionally connected to it, but it's like, it's all positive. So it just doesn't, art for me is always seem like, wow, this person must be going through something like intense. And weddings are just all well and good. I mean, I love them. I love the intensity and the emotional highs for the most part. They come with them. So yeah, that's probably my answer to that.
Yeah, because I mean, you are such a positive guy. People pick up on that. And I think that's the reason why people just enjoy listening to you and your work as well. Because you tell your story and you communicate that with it. So it's always very interesting.
One of the things that worries me a little bit is when photographers kind of don't have that separation and don't have another avenue to express themselves, especially if it's something negative or depressing that they're dealing with, or just any conflict, I guess, in their life. And when they have to use the same tool to photograph, if they're wedding photographers, something really happy and really positive, but also use that same tool to express themselves in like a struggling way, that I think is that could be bad. I think I feel very fortunate to have something totally different, still creative or whatever with music, but a totally different avenue for expressing that. So they're just completely segmented in my mind and in my emotions in a good way. So hopefully that made sense. But I think it's a little worrisome to try and connect them when, at the end of the day, you have to do kind of a positive angle on weddings. Like, nobody wants a wedding to be photographed in a depressing way.
I think that's really important that you say that. I mean, when there's so many of us photographers that start out, you're just shooting your heart out, literally. And so like, you're just throwing it out there and you're like, oh man, I'd love to be able to make money doing this, and then you realize, oh, not everybody wants that really, really dark photo of, it looks kind of creepy, but it's beautiful, and not everybody they like looking at it, but paying for it is a different story, and being able to make a career from those types of photos is significantly different than shooting something like weddings. And so
and then when every wedding or so, you might take some images just for yourself, and they might be photos that are a little more dark and moody if that's just how you feel and that's your attitude, but and that's your moment of expression. But then you've got the entire rest of the wedding day to still photograph, and I think that you could potentially run the risk of resenting that and just not enjoying it and not deriving energy from the rest of the wedding day. And I love weddings, all aspects of them. There's not one single part that I like dread or hate. I mean, certain parts that I don't love as much, but there's a spectrum. But in general, I derive energy from just being around anything to do with a wedding. So anyway,
right on.
A little complicated with all this, but hopefully
it makes sense. And I love how you approach it. I really do. It's refreshing, and I think it's a good way for us photographers, and a lot of us, we just call ourselves artists. I know I started off that way, and I was like, I'm going to be an artist, but I'm going to make money, and hustle and all this stuff. But understanding that there's a significant business side to it too.
And I had a bit of an epiphany. Like, the words artists and storytellers are thrown out there so much, especially for wedding photographers. And for me, I had this epiphany when I was at a conference in Sevilla, Spain, and this photographer did amazing work. He was really cool. But he just, every other word out of his mouth was storytelling, story. And that's fine, except that I just got sick of hearing it. And I was like, I've always kind of thought of myself as a storyteller as well, just because that's how everybody seems to describe themselves. But wait a second, I don't think that I really am. I mean, you can get, of course, stories and from any photo or any collection of photos. You can derive stories from it. So in some ways I am a storyteller, but the word that popped into my head that I was just like, no, this is a better description for me is craftsman, right? Not that I'm building wood and stuff, but I craft my ideas and my photos. Like at least my favorite photos are ones that I've kind of crafted from an idea and working the light and the composition, and that sits a lot better with me than just constantly this artistic storytelling angle that I think is just totally saturated the market. Sure.
Anyway. I'm doing research for this talk we're having right now. I went and saw that because on your About Me page, I saw that you had craftsman right there at the top, which I saw that word to me is a really powerful word. I think, it's a word that I teach in my class. I teach digital art down here in Durham too. And it's a word that I like to use is the word craft more, but that's interesting. That's interesting to say that.
Cool. Yeah. And literally my website being redesigned at the end of last year was why I was thinking so much about my my work and how I wanted to rewrite the copy on my site. And that's such a healthy process to go through. Like,
Sure.
doing
You do all that yourself, by the way?
Yeah. I did it all myself, and I looked into outsourcing that as well, and that ended up being really expensive. The quote I got was just like, there's no way I'm paying that. And secondly, I really wanted it to come from myself, so I wrote it all, and developed it over a couple months as the website was getting rolled out. But I do see a few other questions.
Let's answer those.
Just a few that would be easy to answer. So one, because I'm using live view, do I find myself being criticized? Let's see, criticized, people calling me a noob. I'm sure people think that, but I literally just couldn't care less. I mean, yeah, it might seem a little amateurish to be looking at the back of your screen and holding your camera up, but like, at the end of the day, your work should speak for itself, and who cares about the avenue you took to get to that end result. Nobody's ever come up to me and said like, oh yeah, are you sure you know what you're doing, or anything like. And my clients trust me, they know my work. I don't care if their second cousin is like, he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. And I've been on the other side. I've been the judgmental photographer sitting there watching another photographer take an image, and I'm just like, this is gonna be crap. Like, this is such a waste of time. And then I see the picture and I'm just like, nope, okay, mind blown. I'm never saying that again. Like, you just don't know what the perspective and what is going on unless you are seeing the back of that camera. So don't judge. And if don't worry about it if people are giving you a hard time. It's whatever. Can you sub to me, please? I don't know what that means.
Do it, whatever.
Posing a higher groom, or I've had taller brides before. If you have any massive differentiation in height, sitting is like the great equalizer. Like, that is really what I go for. Any place you can have them sit like that totally works. And also just force perspective. I'll probably do a little bit fewer of the close and cuddly stuff, and a little bit more of like the shorter person in the foreground and the taller person way in the back, and just play with that a little bit. The other thing you do is I try not to ask people to crouch down with their knees, but actually like spread their legs, but literally do the split and then photograph them from the waist up, because that way their posture is not affected, but they're a couple inches lower. That's really helpful. And then, of course, you can just always look for things on the terrain and in the environment to put some up on a curb or on a hill at an angle, stuff like that. Just, nothing too crazy. But Leica SL is amazing. However, somebody asked about that. That will probably be my go-to workhorse camera once the 50 millimeter autofocus lens is released. Unfortunately, that's not coming till the end of this year. Once that comes out, because I shoot pretty much 50 or 24 all the time. Once the 50 comes out, that'll be my workhorse. But right now, everything's manual focus, and that's just, I can use it for portraits, but that's about it. And unfortunately, 90% of a wedding day is not portraits. So I don't know why they didn't release that, more lenses when that camera launched, but yeah, cool. Any other questions that jumped out at you? What was marketing versus talent play? Marketing is huge in being successful. That's good. I've just kind of improvised everything to do with marketing and just learning ad hoc and by the seat of my pants. I've never had some grand plan or approach to everything that I do for marketing. I've just tried to stay true to what my gut instinct seems like a good idea. And again, sometimes that's failed completely, but in the overall scheme, I think I'm doing pretty well. But I know many photographers that I wouldn't consider really talented that still become successful because they are better at marketing. But when you can blend both, that's really the perfect storm, and that's what I try and do. But photography hasn't really come very easily to me in general. My understanding of it has, but the ability to like pre-visualize and pose people I still work at that. That is still an uphill battle in my mind, because I just can't picture these things in my mind. I have to see it in real time in front of me to really be comfortable. And So I don't actually consider myself talented. I think it's just tons of work. I mean, when I shot at the press club, I was shooting every single day for hours. And I can't stress that enough. Even now, when I have the strange weekend off, right? So it'll be 2 weeks, a 2 week gap between the wedding I shot last weekend and the wedding I have next weekend. And that's going to feel weird. Just having that one weekend missing, like it takes me a little bit to get back into it. I can't imagine going a full month or two without shooting. That would just be insane. And I think a lot of photographers do that. They kind of just put it down and give themselves a break, which might be healthy. It might work for them just fine. But for me, like it's a constant work.
And you feel like that's important for your marketing side, not really your talent side.
Yeah. Well, both really. I mean, yeah. But again, I try and blend it.
I mean, whenever I start to lose confidence and lose that, I'm not as anywhere close to as busy as you, obviously. Almost the opposite. But so a lot of times I don't have work, so I'm like, oh, screw it. I'd be like, well, I'd come up with something else. But I'm just like, pick up my camera and take a photo and take a bunch of photos and make one and
Yep.
Getting in that mindset and saying I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to get on there and I'm going to post a photo with my style every day, even when I don't want to.
Yes. Especially when you don't want to. That's literally when you should be doing it the most, which sucks. But that is when you'll grow the most. Like growing up, I think I mentioned I played violin from 7 years old, and I played up until basically the first year of college, and so 15 something years, I guess, and that's just insane to think about. But most of that time spent was practicing at least 1 hour every single day, and hating it. Like always. Occasionally I'd really enjoy it, but like I hated practicing. But now I look back and think about how big of a deal that was in my abilities as a violinist, which I was generally pretty good by all accounts, and that was just so rewarding now that I can look back on that and think about that time. But when I was in it in the moment, I just hated it. It's the same thing with photography. Like seriously, when you should be out and shooting the most is the day that you're just not in the mood at all. Like make it happen. And I used to be out there all the time and literally like my front yard, like taking macro pictures of grass strains and abstract stuff and leave. Just like, and awesome. Now I work enough that I don't have to go out in my own yard and do it. Sure. But like, that was definitely me for a while. And I would do light painting in like the shed for hours, and like just in my room, I'd turn all the lights off and do hours of light painting with flashlights and LEDs and just having fun with it. But anyway,
that's great. Yeah, I think that's the one thing I try to teach my students as well. It's just like again, I said like Macklemore's a huge inspiration of mine, but I have the quote up in my wall. The grades weren't great because at first they could paint. The grades are great because they paint a lot, and I was like, it's so freaking true. I'm just like, it's no one is considered good because they're just good. It's just because they do it all the time,
Yeah, and I'm sure, of course, for some people, things do come more naturally faster than others, but like there still has to be this investment, this cost of your time, and for sure. I was somebody saying, do I have a weakness in photography? The very first thing that popped into my mind is actually nothing to do with taking photos. I'm really bad at remembering people's names. It's my fatal flaw as a photographer. I say that all the time because when you're photographing somebody, or even in regular conversation with people, the best thing you can do to make them like you and make them just feel good in your presence is to say their name to them, Mark, over and over. Like as we're talking, right. I don't know if you feel the same about this, Mark, but like the more I say your name, the happier you're probably going to start to feel. But like, I'm not very good at that.
Sam, I do.
Yeah. But it's true. Like I would hang around with this coworker of mine at the IT department at the press club, and I loved him. He's just such a great guy. And I finally realized one day it's because he says my name a lot in conversation, and he is really nice, but he was one of the few people I ever met that just did it naturally. And it's when you're photographing somebody and you can say their name, and in the whole process, it really helps. And I'm horrible at that. If I have even slightest doubt that I am not remembering or saying their name properly, I just won't say it anymore. And that's, it becomes a lot of like, yeah, if you could just stand back here and pointing with my hands, and then she can just hold on to your arm. And it's just like, clearly they know that I've forgotten their name.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
If you could
it's really bad. I've gotten a lot better at it, but I really have to work at it. It's funny, but
That's a good question. Any other ones that you are itching to answer over there?
Let's see. How would you surpass seeing when you don't have models at your call? I think I already kind of talked about that. And literally go out in your yard. You don't have. I mean, it certainly helps to have people, like actual humans, to pose and work through, but like you don't have to spend all of your time shooting people. Honestly, animals is what I thoroughly enjoy photographing wildlife and animals at the zoo or whatever. And you can actually derive a lot of the lessons learned photographing animals and apply that to portrait work, because they have 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. It's a lot of the same thinking in your shots. So you just work with what you got, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, and on that same topic, I mean, I think I started off as a photographer by doing self-portraits. I did like a 100-day self-portrait project, and
oh, nice, yeah.
And what's even funnier is what made it even tougher is that I broke my foot in the middle of it, and I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna keep doing it. And I made sure I was the only one who did everything. So, I'm hobbling around, my tripod and my camera, and just trying to figure this out. And every day I would post one, and I got so much better just shooting myself, and I learned so much about posing, etc. That's
shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, actually, and going through that, like, it totally reminded me of really my favorite ideas in photos and just ways of shooting have come about by letting the problems that come up be the inspiration for the shot. Like, I don't know, if I'm assuming your perspective and your ideas started to change once you broke your foot trying to keep up with this project in ways that wouldn't have if you had 2 working feet, right? And a lot of times I set myself up to not have everything work or do as I expect 100% of the time. I like having 10-20% failure rate with a lens or whatever. That might sound like foolishly high risk, but I'm not completely gonna risk someone's wedding photos, but there's got to be a little bit of risk and problem solving in there that will totally inspire new ideas. You let the problems be the source of the inspiration, and it'll take you places that you just couldn't have imagined. So
it's good.
Not that I want to be photographing a wedding with a broken foot or anything.
I actually shot an album cover shoot that summer too with a broken foot. Yeah, it was crazy. My wife had to do stuff, and I was hobbling around. I was literally, I couldn't walk on it at all. It was horrible. But I was just gonna hop around and shoot. It probably wasn't smart, but it turned out great. It's
nice.
Wonderful. So
yeah. Cool. Let's see. No, I never stress before weddings, only if I haven't shot one for a long time, it's been a long time since that's been the case. So I don't really stress anymore. But again, the first couple of years, I certainly lacked confidence.
Yeah.
It's something you just grow out of, I think. Best photo ever taken. Get some tips, some young filmmaker. I don't know. Yeah. I don't really know how to answer that.
Answer.
Yeah. I don't know the best photo I've ever taken. I think one of my portfolio has basically all of my favorites. I felt really good about my portrait of George Clooney because the idea was perfectly executed the way that I wanted to, even though I was literally like shaking when I was taking the images because it was pretty high stress. And I was really happy that it all worked perfectly. But I don't know. My favorites always shift. I guess I have like one or two like really good, like I did this one with the day and night shot. I don't know if you've seen it, Mark.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah. I've actually wondered. I remember when you first posted that. Was it like last year or something?
Yeah, a year or two ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was just wondering what the heck happened with that.
So that one was like totally planned out
No.
the night before. I knew conceptually exactly what I wanted to try,
Oh.
and it's basically a double exposure in camera of the left shot with the groom, with the black, or the right half of the frame totally blacked out for my passport. And even though she was there, her entire half of the frame was blacked out. And then I left the camera on the ground, marked exactly where they were standing,
Yeah.
went and shot the reception, came back out after the sun had set hours later, and flipped the passport so it was black on the left half of the frame.
Huh.
Even though he was there, he was mostly just a frame of reference so that they were in the exact same position.
Sure.
And then photographed her with a LED light on her. And then, yeah, when you layer them using overlay on Nikon or double exposure in Canon, the light from one shows the black from the other, and it works awesome. And it's really hard because you have to get the alignment perfectly right down the middle for it to come off. And I've had trouble doing it. Even I've tried it at like 2 other weddings and just it hasn't lined up. hasn't been good. So it's tough, but that's probably one of my favorite pictures, just because it all.
The process just sounds so interesting, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it came from the inspiration came from listening to somebody talk about Stanley Kubrick in a podcast, and how he would do something very similar with the front of video cameras. He would tape up the half the lens, expose all the film with half of it black, reload the film, flip it over, and then take a whole nother series of shots and basically get this in camera double exposure for movies. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, we've almost been on here for like an hour. Do you want to
Yeah, we can wrap. It's cool. I don't know how many people are in. I mean,
it looks like we still got some new ones keep popping up. So I mean, unless there's one over there that you really want to tackle, I'd say
I think we do. You network market venues? No, I don't actually at all proactively network or market myself to venues or planners or anything. I have planners that really like working with me, and so they consistently send me work here and there. But the only thing I do is that if they ask for pictures, like the florist or any of the vendors ask for pictures, I just send them the whole gallery and say, take what you want. I don't say anything about giving me credit. I just assume that hopefully they would give me credit if they like my work. But I just put it out there. I don't really want to get too aligned with any one planner or any one venue, because then I just see happening where I'm shooting the same types of weddings or the same locations time and time again. And I feel like I just want it to always be different. I want to be in different venues and work with different people. And it's fine to work with some of the same people over and over, here and there, but not too consistently. I like the change up and the differentiation. So I try not to do too much. But, if you have 0 weddings on the books and you want to be doing this full time, you get out there and hustle.
Right.
Yeah. Send people nice boxes of chocolate with your business card attached. Do whatever you have to.
Yeah, man. It's just giving stuff away. That's the more and more. I tell my students, I'm like, you guys just got to find people and do free stuff for them, just make your art for free and give it to them and don't ask for anything back.
Well, yeah. And that is a big question a lot of photographers go through, is like, well, everybody's saying never work for free, or, always charge thousands of dollars for weddings. Like, if you've never shot a wedding before, even if you're an amazing photographer, but you've never shot specifically a wedding before, you've never shot like a band and an album cover before, you've never shot like fashion, like, you should be charging based on your experience, not your abilities as a photographer, in my opinion.
Sure.
Because so my first wedding, I shot $500. I felt like that was, and I think I gave that pretty much all to my second shooter who I had shooting with me. Like, I felt, and as my experience grew and as I knew, as confidence grew, my prices did. So that's just how you have to do that, I think. And then, of course, if you need to drum up business and marketing, it doesn't hurt to give things away for free.
Yeah, sure. You might be interested in this. I did a whole year project. Well, 7 month project. I was just cold emailing musicians, and I got they came to my town. We're a big music town down here, but as is DC. But I was able to shoot one of the Lumineers, and I was able to shoot Nappy Roots. I don't know if you remember those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're same age as me, but Ian Nappy Roots and Bensley and Griffin House, all these other. But it's just like, hey, I'd love to come and give you photos of yourself, and you can use them any way you want to, you know. And then they're like, oh my God, yeah, of course, you know. And I'm just like, are you serious? You want to do that? And they're like, yeah, of course, you know, give me photos. And so I was like, great, you know. But then, you know, your SEO gets blown up. You get all these other
totally. And it's still, even if you don't get other work from it, you're still doing photography. You're still practicing and working at it, and like getting out in the field and doing it. Like that still has a return, even if it's not monetary.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, you learn how to shoot people, you know.
And honestly, it's very freeing to do things for free, because you have you know, hopefully complete control or close to it. Like
right.
They're going to let you kind of do whatever you want. I mean, my portrait series of celebrities, that was, I mean, I worked for the press club.
I was going to say, those are all free that you did.
Yeah, I didn't make extra money from them in any way. And that was totally like, I felt like I could do whatever the heck I wanted. And that was really nice. If I was getting paid by a magazine a couple $1,000s, I think I would listen to what exactly they wanted me to do, you know, for the most part. So. Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I know this has been really helpful for me and all these other people to hear just thoughts on stuff that you normally don't talk about, Sam, and it's been awesome. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I think this will be available on YouTube, and so if somebody missed it, especially if you're listening right now and you missed like the first half, you can check back. Is it instantly available on YouTube? Yeah.
It's actually being streamed live on YouTube right now, as well as this Google Hangout, which is
perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But I wish I could like talk to people that are watching, as far as like give them a link. Do you know of a way we can do that?
Nope, I don't see any of it. Yeah. They can just submit questions, and that's it.
Well, sorry guys, we were kind of new to this, but this is really cool. But you can always go back to I mean, you can go to you can go to my YouTube page, Mark May Photography. There's probably a link around the page somewhere, and you'll be able to see this broadcasting right now, and you'll be able to go back and watch it. So
perfect.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Sam, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You
Thanks,
too.
guys. Appreciate it.